Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. I got my man here, Daniel Blue. He is a running machine. First off, he's the owner of Quest Education. It's a company that helps entrepreneurs obtain capital for their companies. They've done 7 figures multiple times over now. He's a keynote speaker, a podcast host also of the podcast How Winners Win. And like I said, he's a running machine. Daniel, welcome to the show, brother.
Doug, I appreciate the intro on both sides. You had a really cool, well-produced intro to begin with, and then appreciate the wise words or the words that you spoke very highly of me. So thank you.
Absolutely. And so was it your birthday or Trevor's birthday that y'all ran was it like 47 miles or something like that?
Yeah, man, it was his birthday, and I literally have the picture right here. I keep it in my desk, awesome. On my desk. Yeah, it was. It's crazy. It was June 3rd of last year when we were in Apex at the MDM when I made that commitment to make the 38-mile run happen.
Man, that is, I did a marathon last year, and I definitely would not have done that without Trevor in my ear constantly every time that we met up for the RBO meetups. Just some context here. Daniel and I met in Apex, and then we also hooked up a couple times for the RBO masterminds. He was a guest speaker there, and in that mastermind is Trevor Cowley, who you just can't hang out with the dude without getting roped into running 37 miles like my guy Daniel here. So what was that like, man? What was the mental journey doing that like?
Man, it just really reminded me when you set a goal that scares you, a lot can happen because, man, the mental part and the physical part definitely had a lot of doubt. So just so the audience knows and they have full context. So it's June 3rd. We're in Dallas. It's really humid, right? Summer, Dallas, really humid. And it's my birthday. So for my birthday, Trevor is not the kind of guy to go out and grab drinks. It's like, hey, let's go get a workout in. So for my birthday, we ran from the hotel to Lifetime Gym to get a workout in. And it was like a mile there and a mile back. Mm-hmm. And I just remember being pretty winded. And he was telling me, he's like, hey, man, my birthday's next month. I'm going to run 38 miles for my birthday. And, Trevor and I go back. So we're pretty competitive. And we talk a lot of shit to each other playfully. I'm like, dude, I got to do this too. I can't let you just one up me. If you're going to do it, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. He's like, okay, cool. So then I left Dallas with the plan of, okay, I'm going to run 38 miles in 6 weeks. What does that look like? And luckily I was surrounded by a few people. It's interesting. Once you almost identify as a runner, next thing you know, you're attracting runners in your life. Mm-hmm. I was at the gym the next week and I ended up rubbing shoulders with someone that ran 30, 40 miles in their sleep, and they're miles without losing a leg, and we were good.
It turns out you survived, right? So I know a big part of that is fueling yourself too along the way, and it's funny because it is a metaphor for life and for business. Like you have to constantly be fueling yourself, whether it's an education, motivation, or the skills that you need to execute. So that's how I kind of felt about the marathon. It was just like this constant eating and drinking, and especially when you come to the end, because I know what you're talking about at mile 18. I mean, all the doubt creeps in. You're like, it's like 8 more miles is like long enough to like give up, but it's also short enough to where you can't give up. You know what I mean? Like you've come this far, and so you're literally pushing your body way further than it wants to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember cramping up and like at mile 18 and basically being like, how am I gonna run another 8 miles with these cramps? But I somehow managed to do it.
Yeah, respect to you for, I know you got up to a marathon pretty quickly, and I
Mhm.
weigh 180, and I know you've got some bigger guns over there. So,
Yeah, we'll go with that.
yeah, the heavier you are, it's,
Yeah,
I always look at, and no offense to anyone that fits this category,
yeah,
because it is what it is. Like a runner that's 140-pound male with like no muscle and they're just a twig, man, that's
yeah.
just a lot easier than running a marathon compared to someone that's like 200 pounds and jacked. So I
Mhm.
always have respect for people like you that, just got more muscle, they got more, bone, more meat on the bone. So what I was going to say though is when Trevor and I were running, we hit a really big wall like mile 28 where he and I just had to like stop. And the
Yeah,
RV's behind us because we're in the middle of Utah, right? We started the run at midnight in July and we had an RV tailing us. And I remember about mile 28, 29, like we just stopped. Like we both had to like just like start walking.
yeah.
Okay, gotta catch my breath. And isn't it so wild how at mile 28, I felt like I had a zero in the tank. And then, man, it was crazy when I got to mile 35, 36, 37. Dude, I felt alive. Like I felt
Yeah,
like I was like, dude, I can run all day. Like this is great. I have so much energy. So it's
yeah.
kind of like the highs and lows of life. There's a lot of parallels between running and life in general and business too.
No, I couldn't agree more. And just the fact that you went from 0 to 38 in 6 weeks is crazy. But again, power of the mind, power of the human body. That's amazing, man. So I also wanted to tell you congrats. I saw that you just got published in Forbes yet again. You're like a Forbes writing machine now, from what I see. And so, can you kind of walk us through how do you even get an opportunity to do that? And then what are they looking for in order for you to get that kind of opportunity to publish in their website or their magazine?
Yeah, so I think we can tie this into a few different things
Okay.
because I know you and I come from the mastermind world,
Hmm.
and I know a lot of your audience maybe can resonate with
Yeah.
this. So I think it's really easy, especially in 2023, where you want to have your hands in a lot of different things, right? You want
Hmm.
to do real estate, you want to do crypto, you're sales guru, you do Airbnbs, and that's cool. Like respect to people that have that ability and they're making money in different ways. I bet there was one way though that they really got good at making money, and then that allowed them to create multiple streams of income. And some of
Hmm.
the things that I saw that didn't work in other masterminds is people that would always change what they did.
Yeah.
And I'm not as far along as maybe some of the listeners or some of the guests that you've had, but I just stay in my lane. Like I'm not quite there where I can be like, yeah, I own 100 units, right?
Right.
Or yeah, I have 5 businesses in my portfolio. No, I own Quest Education. I've been in business for 5 years. I've got 11 employees. We've got
Hmm.
1,000 customers in all 50 states. I stay in my lane, like self-directed 401k and IRAs. That is my jam. That is my bread
Hmm.
and butter. If you come to me and you're like, hey, I need help with my estate plan, like I am not going to be like, well, let's talk about your trust or your will. Like I'm not going to act like I know everything. No, I
Right.
got a guy, right? I say that a lot. Like, hey, this is a great company. Go check them out, but do
Hmm.
your own research and due diligence. Like I'm not gonna, I can't vet these companies out because I have my own business, right? But go check out these resources. But the point I was
Yeah.
trying to make, Doug, is what made it easier for me to get published in different places is I talk about something very specific
Hmm.
and I have some credibility where I've been doing it for a decent amount of time,
Yep.
right? And I think if you can identify a place in your life where, okay, it is sales, it's teaching people how to do sales.
Hmm.
Okay, great. Like focus on that, not for 6 months, right? Not for a year, but
Right.
get really good at that over a period of time. I've been in the self-directed retirement account space since 2014. Owned
Hmm.
my own business for 5 years. So I've been in this space now for almost 10 years. I really feel like to really get good at something, you probably need to be in that space for at least 5, 7, 10 years. And I know that's probably not backed up by facts. It's more of my opinion.
Right.
But I think to answer your question, Doug, is when you focus and you drill down and you go deep instead of, wide, then it's easier to get opportunities to be noticed, to get published. Because basically the Forbes, there's just councils, right? Like they have the finance council, the business council. I just approached it where it's like, hey, I'm in the finance space. I think I'd be a really good writer in the finance world. Here are some of the things I've done before. You can check me out. And okay, cool. You like me? Awesome. Let me start writing for you guys.
Yeah, 100%. No, and I couldn't agree more. I've come across those crossroads several times where it's like, okay, I could do this other thing because I do it really well in my business, and that's what happened, right? 13 years building sales teams, and so that was my niche. That was my thing that was super deep. And then of course, like, all right, we got the podcast going now, and we crush it at that. We got um, uh, uh, a large VA team, and they're putting out crazy amounts of content. You know what I'm saying? And so there's all these other opportunities. But what ended up happening, and I love what you said earlier. Like you started running and you started attracting runners. And so I posted a T-shirt design this morning that said, "If you build it, they will come." Right. And so I thought about this design because uh, I went through a brand build, I guess you could say, with one of my consulting partners. And in going through that, we really identified what I do and the message behind it, right? So the message was, you don't need better salespeople, you need a better sales program, right? And so by saying, if you build it, they will come, the idea is, if you build a better sales program, the right kind of salespeople you need will come, you know? And so, but there's also a biblical reference to that, right? Noah's Ark, if you build it, they will come, that whole deal. And so I think that has so much to do with not just the biblical part of it, but the energy based part of it, right? So you put it out into the universe that you were going to run 38 miles. You started running. Now you're a runner. That energy is emitting off of you. It's attracting other runners, And I think the same thing happens, and that's why I put that shirt out there. And it's like, you go deep into your niche, like you were talking about, and you're going to start attracting people that need that. You know what I'm saying? And in your case, it was Forbes, right? Okay, so let's pivot a little bit into your niche. So a lot of the people that listen to this are, salespeople, sales managers, or they own sales organizations, or have sales-centric businesses, maybe home service businesses, right? And let's just say they make their first 200K this year. They got 20K in savings. Let's assume that their taxes are paid. What are they doing with that money, or what are they setting up to make sure that they're going to have something at the end of the rainbow?
Yeah, so I'm a really big proponent of having tax-free money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like tax-free money, whether you like Joe Biden, you like Trump, right? I think we all can agree we all like tax-free money,
Yeah.
right? So how do you get tax-free money? There's different ways, right? The way that I am familiar with that essentially everyone can participate in is setting up what's called a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. And that's basically the money that you contribute into that account, you pay taxes on it one time. So let's just say you put $5,000 into that Roth IRA or Roth 401k one time, you pay taxes on it. That 5,000 is taxable income, but let's just say over a period of time, that 5,000 grows to $15,000. Well, that 15,000 is 100% tax free. Right? So you pay taxes on the seed, but not the harvest. And that's how a lot of the savvy people that are in a position of having just more financial freedom, financial independence compared to other people is they just know the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big believer in having different buckets of money, right? You've got your bucket of money that's like your bank account money, like money that's liquid, that's really accessible. And maybe you've got another bucket of money that has real estate, right? It's not as liquid, right? It's a hard asset, but maybe it's giving you some rental income. And then maybe you've got a bucket of money in like an insurance policy, like it's got some cash value, death benefit if you die. Cool. I think there's also a place to have that bucket of money, that down the road money. And that's that Roth money, where really that's the money that you can start playing with without dealing with penalties when you're over 59 and a half. So the entrepreneurs that are listening to this that maybe are a sole proprietorship or they're crushing it selling, making 1099 income or have an LLC, a lot of you qualify for what's called a solo 401k, and you can contribute well over $60,000 a year. And imagine if you were to put, $50,000 a year into a Roth solo 401k, and you did that for 3 years straight. Now you've got $150,000 that you've put into this Roth bucket of money. And that $150,000, what if it grew to $500,000 over the years, right? And everything I'm talking about, I'm not saying it's going to happen next year or the year after, but I'm pretty sure over a long period of time, right? Taking 150,000 and turning it into $500,000, that's not like, oh my gosh, this guy's talking out of his ass, like this is a get rich quick scheme. No, right? I mean, over 10, 15 years, like super doable to make some really, really good returns, right? When you hold on to assets that appreciate. But where I'm going with this, the point I'm trying to make is it's not that hard to have, or take it back. It's easier to have that $500,000, that $1 million of tax-free money than you actually think it is. And it's just knowing the tools to make it happen.
Well, it's not that hard. And I guess that's the problem too. It's not that sexy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sometimes so I'm compared, like, why did I start a business in money? Like, dude, like sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I was just selling ice cream or pizza.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loves that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's part of the problem that we get trapped, myself included. You know what I mean? A couple of years ago, I basically came into a large amount, and I say came into it. I put together a large amount of money to invest into solar, right? And it turns out I didn't need as much as I thought I did. So basically I invested the rest, and it was crypto. It was, these real estate investments, a lot of real estate investments, and then syndications, right? Real estate syndications. So everything but the syndications did really well. And I think that's a testament to the least sexy investment did the best. So these syndications were in land, and then Brandon Brittingham's group that knows what the heck they're doing. They've been doing it for 10 years. But again, it's 10 to 13% annually. You know what I mean? It's basically boring quarterly checks. There's no 1,000% increase in 1 year, or there's no 50K flip on $100,000. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's part of the problem is, guys my age and younger, especially, we just we want that quick money. You know what I mean? And 401k, I'm thinking right away, that's like, the thing that you get and kind of forget about, which is great when it comes to money. But I think that's part of the problem, right? And that's the awareness that we need to raise in this episode is like what you're talking about is actually can be sexy too, right? I think you were the one that told me about this, that you can actually do real estate investments with some of these tools that you're talking about.
Yeah. Like I was literally just talking with someone that's really big in the land space. He helps people buy land deals out in like retirement communities, buying land for like 10,000, 15,000, right? Like these, quarter acre plots and whatnot. So basically what someone can do is when they have, let's just say a 401k from an old job or an IRA, and it's with Fidelity, it's with Vanguard, it's in a Wall Street company, they could technically convert that money into a self-directed account. And in that self-directed account, now they have land that self-directed account owns, right? And if they buy and hold on to that land and flip it, and they make 100% return over a period of time, all of those gains, there's no taxes claimed, right? There's no income claimed, right? So they can use their self-directed account to own a property. They can use their self-directed account to invest into a syndication. They can invest into crypto. They can hold precious metals. They can invest into a tequila company. Like I was actually just talking to, one of the guys in our masterminds, and he was telling about this sweet tequila company that's just crushing it, that's going to go public. Like you can hold private equity in a self-directed account, right? Like if you're a 401k or IRA that's held at Fidelity and you called your financial advisor, like, hey, I want to invest into this apartment complex in North Carolina. Can you help me? They'd be like, no, but here's this stock that's in real estate that we can sell you. So, a lot of people don't even know they can use their retirement account penalty and tax free to invest in their own business. Right. So there's a lot of ways where it gets sexier and sexier, besides just having your retirement account own, this mutual fund that Dave Ramsey told you about.
Sorry, the Dave Ramsey joke at the end. Yeah, I love it, brother. But that's the biggest deal, right? Is you invest it, or you put it into the 401k, you invest it, and then you don't pull it. And that's the hardest part, especially for entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? Because we are always looking for ways to reinvest back into our business, but this is money that literally you're building your retirement with, or your investment portfolio with. Okay, so with in doing that business, y'all have hit seven figures 2 years in a row now. What are y'all excited about now? Is it run the same play and scale, or is there a different way you're going to market? You're bringing in leads. Where do you feel like is the play right now for 2023 and 24 in terms of lead generation in the financial space?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just keep it 100, because like with our relationship, and I would be doing your audience a disservice if I just made it sound like it's all unicorns and rainbows. So, I would say what's interesting is I had a friend that told me something that keeps me going a lot. And I was complaining to him about a year where we lost money. And he's just like, dude, quit being a bitch. He's like, year one in business, you're going to get kicked in the dick. And hopefully you don't, I can use that word.
You're good.
Year two, you're going to get kicked in the same spot again. He's like, year three, you'll get kicked, but it won't be as hard. He's like, and then year four and year five, it just gets better and better. So that made sense to me, but then it also didn't, because year one for us, like we did really, really well. I think some things happened that made it work that way. And then, year two was okay. Year three and year four are rough. So we're kind of coming out of that right now. We can blame COVID. We can blame whatever we want. But I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs really talk about this a whole lot, because maybe it's just not fun. Because it's not fun to talk about, but it's a reality. But, we've been having to, deal with a lot of different challenges, in the sense of, like, I had a partner breakup that was just terrible. Like, I was in 3 years worth of litigation.
I remember that.
Paying an attorney $500 an hour for 3 years, like, dude, that sucks. Right. So, when you're dealing with attorneys and you're dealing with COVID, in COVID 2020 and 2021, the government made it to where people could take their retirement accounts penalty and tax free. And it was only for that year. And that was like unprecedented. Like, that's never happened before. That's what sells, like, when we're marketing to people, right? Like, hey, we're going to show you how to access your retirement account penalty and tax free. And the government is like, nah, you can do that because of COVID. What do you mean, man? Like, that's our slogan, right? So, like, that sucked. That hurt our lead flow that year. I lost a couple of key people, key personnel in my operations department. And I was at a point, Doug, where I had a choice. I either go pay top talent and I bring somebody in to run my fulfillment, run my operations, or I jump into that machine and then I go from there. And there was 2 reasons why I decided to jump in my operations. One, I was really up for a challenge. I'm a sales guy. Like, sales is what I've done my whole life. Like, 18 years old, my very first job, one of my first jobs was just calling 150 people a day, getting told no, cold calling. And I did well with that. So sales is just who I am and what I do. So operations, I never really knew that part of my business. I always hired people to do that. And cash flow was pretty tight. This was last year. So it's like, you know what? Let me jump in this. And dude, that really sucked, Doug. It sucked because I was so used to selling. And now I had to go over SOPs and processes and logistics and operations. And it was a big learning curve, man. I really felt like I went to school. Like, I got home from school or from work. I just remember telling my wife, I'm like, dude, my brain is fried. Like, I'm using this part of my brain I never used before. And it probably took a good 4 months for me to get through all that. And man, like, it's so much better now, because now I know so much more about my business than I knew before. And I've been able to retool that department, hired a couple new people, And the best part about it, Doug, is now I can hold that department accountable because I know all the measurables. I know exactly what it takes to do this task. My sales process, my sales team, I've always known that. Like, I know how long it takes to get on the phone with a cold lead. I know how long it takes for you to update your CRM after you talk to that lead. I know how many calls it takes for you to close a deal because I've done it. But my operations, my fulfillment, I didn't know everything. I just trusted people, and not that those people were there to screw me over. But ultimately, I'm doing my business a disservice as the owner, as the captain of the ship, if I don't know every part of my business. And that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I got over the last 6 months as I was going through some really tight months. Cash flow was rough. And my sales got hurt because I was business development. I was lead gen. So, that's where I had to take a pause from going to masterminds, traveling. Like, I really wasn't, hunting and getting leads a whole lot because I'm like, dude, I got to fix my fulfillment first. I got holes in my operations. I need to fix that first. And then I'm going to feel good about, bringing in some new business. So, all of that, was a really, really good lesson. So hopefully, there's maybe someone listening to this podcast that, has a business where it's like, okay, ask yourself, your operations, your fulfillment department, your service department, like, do you know all the boring stuff? Do you know exactly how long it takes to do ABC? Do you have SOPs for ABC? If you hire somebody, do you actually have like a video curriculum where that VA or that new person can watch those SOPs and pick up where, people last left off? And I didn't have a lot of those 6 months ago, and I do now.
It's so funny because you're just describing the flip side of my career, right? And so basically, I started out in entry level door-to-door sales, and I had to knock doors for 90 days. But I started out as the general manager of the company because my previous partner wanted me to take it over and see if I can get it back to black. And I didn't know it at the time, but my strong suit was operations, And so I took an operation stance on everything, and I did exactly what you just said. I developed a curriculum, training, systems, all of that around it, and then I recruited people to come into sales, right? And then for most of my career, I trusted them to run the sales, but it made my machine very, very I don't know how to describe it. Fast food. We'd have a lot of fast food wins, that wouldn't last. But the operations always held it up. We always recruited like crazy. We always had new people coming in. So even though we had a high turnover, it kind of like didn't matter because our operations was running so tight. So now that's what I do for companies is I bring in the operations, And so, I mean, that's just a great story and a great point because so much of us entrepreneurs are sales centric. And so much of us create our 7-figure business through sales.
To scale, right? They have amazing SOPs. Their culture is on point. Notice how everything I literally said had nothing to do with sales, right? Like, yes, lead acquisition is important and lead conversion is crucial. Yes, you need all those. But again, the point that I'm standing on is I think you can have a really good marketing campaign, a really good lead conversion strategy, dope sales team and you
Mhm.
can just wing it to 7 figures. But I really do feel like you need to be buttoned up in order to get to 8 figures. That's what I'm banking on.
So what do you think? And I agree 100% with what you're saying. And again, I've never done 8 figures, only 7. So hypothesis also, but both of ours would be very similar. So what do you think about 8 to 9? What do you think the difference is there?
Man, I would want to say that they are really, really good at partnerships, right? So I know a lot of people that, not a lot, I know a few people that are like in the high 8 figures,
Mhm.
right? And they're just really, really good at having strategic relationships, right? So that's one thing I noticed. And then they also have gray hairs, right? I think that's something that not a
Yeah.
lot of people want to talk about because it's not sexy. Like we're in this microwave society, this air fryer society where we just want shit done like that, right? But most people that are doing, high 8 figures, I don't think I know anyone personally that I can like call or text that their business is generating, 9 figures a year in revenue. So I might be the wrong person to ask,
Hmm.
but high 8 figures. That's
Yeah.
where I'm kind of coming up with that guess between that gap, to 9 figures is they just been doing it a lot longer than you think,
Yeah.
right? Like they've been
Strategic
at it.
partnerships
Yeah, they've been
and
at it for
experience.
decades. And then they've got these dope partnerships where, they have a market share in Atlanta, they're
Hmm.
crushing it in Portland, they've got distribution in California, right? Like they're just all over the map, right? Now, are there some tech companies or some like unicorns that can,
It's different,
get to 9 figures like really quick? Yeah, like there's always an exception.
but they can fall from 9 figures really fast too,
Man, isn't
because
it crazy? Like,
they become outdated quick.
or they're not even generating a profit, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
how
true.
many of these 9 figure companies are doing 9 figures, but then it's like, okay, what's your net income? Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. But we're raising money.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. But no, I agree with you too. I would add probably M&A, that
Yeah,
they
they're
have an
swallowing up
ability
companies.
to get another entrepreneur to sell their dream essentially,
Yeah.
you know. And that is probably one of the hardest things to do, right? But I've seen it, and it's funny, I've seen it in roofing like 4 times over the past 2 years. 4 different companies, 4 different entrepreneurs, basically get acquired, right? And some of them, and but they had an ability to recruit high level key players and either buy their companies and merge them, or just recruit them from another organization to where okay, they just added 10 million in revenue to their bottom line by recruiting that.
It's interesting you say that, man, because I have a hot take on that.
Hmm.
I think you can get to 7 figures without having the best business plan. I mean, obviously, you need a business plan, right? But we talked
Hmm.
about just not having all of your systems dialed in, not
Right.
having a great culture. Like we've done 7 figures before, and like looking back, our culture wasn't that great, right?
Hmm.
I think culture matters the most when you're doing 8 figures, right? That's my guess. Like going from 7 to 8, because that takes time, right? That takes year
Yeah.
after year after year. Like you and I know several business owners that are doing 8 figures and their
Hmm.
culture is just tight, right? Like a really,
Yeah.
really good
They got
culture,
the
low
key
turnover,
players in the right
right?
seats, and
Yeah.
because of the culture, they stay.
Yeah. Now, my hot take is, dude, I think after 9 figures, like culture doesn't matter as much. Dude, I know a lot of high paying people that work for Amazon, like really, really good high paying, they left. They're
Mhm.
like, dude, their culture sucks. But they're so good at swallowing up companies, right? That's where I
Yeah.
think M&A, merger and acquisitions, is way more important than culture. Now, they still need to have culture. I'm not saying
Yeah.
disregard culture, but they're just like, yeah, screw your culture. How much do I need
Yeah.
to write this check out to buy your company for?
Exactly. The culture's over after that.
Yeah.
That's where the numbers come in, and then that's where the art form kind of
Yeah.
dies. I
Yeah.
feel like,
Yeah. Oh,
you
you
know,
don't like your job as one of the C-suite executives working for my company? Yeah, here's some stock shares of the company. Yeah, go take
yeah,
your wife on a vacation. All right.
yeah. You'll be real happy when you come back.
Exactly.
No, I love that. So we kind of got off on a tangent there, but I want to definitely add some more value for the listeners here, because I know that you're well versed in this, and I hear so many influencers and people that don't know what they're talking about screw it up. But I want to hear it from an expert. How do you become your own bank?
Yeah, so I want to be super, super transparent. One, I'm not a financial advisor, right? So I'm not here to push any products on you or give you
Okay.
financial advice. Two, I would say the most common how to be your own bank, like if you asked like some of the people in your circle that are maybe a little more savvy than others, and you're like, hey, how do I be my own bank? Or you YouTube, how do I be my own bank? You're probably going to get answers that have to do with life insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
A whole life policy, just being your own bank, IUL, some type of insurance product that allows you to essentially borrow against that policy, right?
Okay.
That is one way to be your own bank, right? The way that I feel like I'm an expert at being your own bank is when it comes to a retirement account, specifically a 401k. So let's use a real life example, right? So we have someone that we're currently helping right now. He has, I think, 50,000 in a 401k from his old job, and he
Mm-hmm.
needs to get his hands on like $15,000 to put into his business. He needs that 15,000 for operating capital. Doesn't want to borrow that money from the bank. He wants to be essentially his own bank. And how we show him how to do that is we take that 50,000 from his 401k through his old job, and we convert that into what's called a solo 401k. And then the
Okay.
solo 401k, so now he's got the 50,000 in a solo 401k. He can take a loan from that plan. So he basically can take the 15,000 out penalty and tax free, put that in his business bank account. Now he's got that 15K as operating capital. He can use that money however he wants. Now the whole being your own bank, where that comes in, is that 15,000 that he took from his solo 401k as a loan, he just has to pay back within 5 years. And as long as he does that, there's an interest rate of prime plus about 1 to 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rate goes back to himself. He's just paying himself back that money. And as long as he pays it back within 5 years, there's no penalties, no taxes on that 15K that he took out. So this is a great way for someone to get their hands on money and use that money in a way that gives them a shot
Yeah.
at being able to do something good with it, right? Because again, I'm not here to give you financial advice. If you take money out as a loan from your solo 401k and you use it to buy Bitcoin and it goes to zero, right? Like that was crap, right? You might as well just and put it on black at the casino, right? So there's always going to be risk, but shoot, if you could just have another tool in the tool belt to get your hands on some money, accessing your retirement account penalty and tax free using that strategy is one way to do it.
No, I love it. And how easy it was for you to explain it. You know what I'm saying? Because I have heard the life insurance answer probably like 20 times in the last 3 months. You know what I mean? And nobody can explain it except for two people. One of them's Jeff Smith, and then the other one is Keith Goss. And so, they go through more of the life insurance product side of it, but I love that you could easily explain it on the 401k side. So that's massive in my opinion. And a great example is getting 15 grand for your business, which I feel like if anybody has been around for a couple of years now, we went through the low of COVID, we went through the high of EIDLs and PPPs in the marketplace, right? Everybody's making a bunch of money, and now we're about to go through the low again. So that's a very, very important tool that Daniel just gave you guys in order to access that cash should you be going through that low again. So I think that's incredibly important. Okay, when you do these a lot of these keynotes and stuff like that, it's not necessarily all the time around financial. um, you like to talk about how to win with the hand you were dealt. And so, can you kind of walk us through maybe a quick outline for doing that for the listeners?
Yeah, I feel like there was a point in my life that just allowed me to just be who I am. And
Hmm.
really I mean by that is, so I'll just kind of paint a quick little picture. So, basically I'm at a point in my life where I am 18 years old and I just find out I'm about to have a daughter and I'm high on Oxycontin. I've been addicted to pills for about a year now. And I'm just like in a really, really bad position, mentally, financially. Oxycontins are like $80, $60 for the small little pill, and I'm doing one or two a day, right? I'm making 100 grand a year, but I'm spending more than I'm making, right? And I'm just the most, you picture the biggest douchebag that you've ever met. That was me. I'm 18 years old. And a lot of the reason why I was making those decisions is I was dealing with a victim mentality. I was holding on to a lot of anger towards my father, because if we rewind six years prior to that, I was 12, and at that point, man, Doug, I had a really really good childhood. I don't have this story as a 6-year-old, 10-year-old boy, in a foster home, homeless. Like, no, I lived in a cul-de-sac, middle class. My dad was my soccer coach. He took me to school. Had two parents in the household. It was just it was a great childhood. I was very fortunate. But when I was 12, my parents split, and my dad moved to Mexico, and he never came back. And I never got answers at that time why he left and why he didn't come back. And we just stopped talking. And that crushed me, because I was like my best friend, right? Like, for
Yeah.
those of you that are listening to this, that were 12, 13, your dad was in your life and you were a boy, he probably was your best friend too, right?
Mhm.
So like that really shattered me. So then I held on to a lot of that anger growing up. I started just doing really bad in middle school and high school. And so I ended up having my daughter. Now I'm 19 years old. And I just remember having my daughter, and holding her in my hands. And I just remember thinking, I was still high at the time. Like, I'm still using drugs at this time. And I
Mhm.
just remember I was just like, dude, like, this feeling of being a father is amazing. Like, this is my blood. And
Mhm.
I know I'm a piece of shit dad right now. And my daughter's looking at me, even though she, can't really think. She's a newborn. But like, there's this bond that her and I have, and it can't be broken. But at the same time, my dad probably feels the same way. And I immediately, Doug, like, all of a sudden my life turned around, because at that point I was thinking, okay, I'm actually grateful that I had a father growing up. Like, I'm just grateful
Mhm.
that my dad was in my life. He was amazing. I'm just grateful that I actually had a father in my house. And I'm also grateful that he left, because he left, and yeah, he didn't show me how to tie a tie. He didn't show me how to drive. He didn't show me a lot of the things that, fathers teach their kids. But man, it brought my mom and I a hell of a lot closer. We struggled financially, in high school. Like, there was times where my mom and I lived in a hotel for about a month, just because finances were so tight. I'm
Right.
so damn grateful for those times, because it brought us closer, and we have a bond, my mom and I, like, that's just like no other. And I just immediately forgave my dad, and he and I are cool to this day. We got a group chat with WhatsApp. He lives in Mexico, right? So WhatsApp is the way you talk to people in different countries, and it's just all love. But and that was something that really resonated with me. Like, okay, we can't. I didn't choose, right, to have my
Right.
dad move when I was 12 years old, right? Like, that was just the hand that I was dealt, and
Mhm.
I'm just grateful that that was the hand I was dealt. I mean, that hand could have been a lot worse. I know people that have had a worse hand. So just
Mhm.
really easy to lose perspective and lose on that gratitude, and have more of a victim's mentality when you just are holding on to that resentment and that anger, and you just keep looking at all the bad things versus trying to find the good in it all. And I know it's easier said than done. I just think sometimes it takes something drastic in your life for you to come to that, like, aha moment. And that
Yeah.
was my aha moment, right? Being 19 years old, having a daughter, not being in a sober state of mind, the sense of, I'm a piece of shit druggie at the time. I needed all
Mhm.
that to happen to get my aha moment. And just super grateful for that.
Man, it's a hell of a story. And what I love about that is you came to that aha moment at 19 years old. I mean, the perspective and I guess mental state that you were in at the time, everything you should have continued to play the victim, even after having a daughter, right? But I think that was, like you said, that moment where everything changed for you. And man, to have it happen at that age is amazing, right? It took me probably another 13 years after that, what I'm saying, to have that moment where it was like, okay, I've got to change everything about the way that I operate and move forward like I would have wanted my dad that I didn't have to do, or my mom that I didn't have to do. You know what I'm saying? And so you had it at 19, which was fantastic. And I see the pictures and everything. I know you've got how many kids do you have? You have an older daughter and a younger daughter?
I just got the one, and
Oh, okay.
man, I really just attribute it to my mom. Like, a
Hmm.
big reason that helped me, kind of square up and get clean. I've been clean since November 2009, but I
Hmm.
remember like it was yesterday, because I was not there when my daughter was born at the hospital. Like, that's
Oh
how
man.
big of a spiral downhill I was going. Right, like, the parents listening to this, like, I bet you were in the hospital watching, all of that happen, right? Cutting the umbilical cord, like you were there. Like imagine not being there, right? And it's not like you weren't there because you were, in the military serving your country. No, you weren't there
Right.
because you were snorting Oxycontin like a piece of shit, right? So like
Mhm.
that's something I have to live with. And I've gotten over that. Like I found peace with that. But
Mhm.
I remember like it was yesterday, Doug, about 2 weeks after, Bella was born,
Mhm.
my mom's like, dude, if you don't step up and be a dad and show up, like you're just doing the same shit your dad did to you, and I will
Mhm.
disown you. And dude, like I was just like, that's all I needed to hear because my mom and I were really, close at
Yeah.
that point, right? So I was like, damn, I can't do that. So, and then when she said, like, dude, you're just repeating the cycle, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just
Just a different
part of the
version of it.
reason. Yeah, I think that's part of the issue that we have today as a world, right? Like,
Mhm.
we just keep repeating the cycle, right? Like broken homes, and that's a
Yeah.
different podcast in itself. But, I
It's
think,
real.
yeah, it
I
just
talk
comes
about
down
it.
to each and every one of us, not
Yeah.
repeating the cycle.
Yeah, I talk about it all the time. That's all I did is I repeated my parents' cycle in my 20s,
Yeah,
and it took a lot. It took a divorce to come out of it, and luckily, the same woman took me back. So it ended up okay. But you know, um, yeah, it's definitely difficult to come to the point that we need to come to in order to get to where we want to go. You know. All right, brother. So last question, and we're getting a little bit deeper here now, and I imagine this has a lot to do with what you just talked about. But what does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
man, that's a deep question right there. I would say, right, it's just being able to, it's almost like getting an anonymous survey from people and asking those people, like, what do they think of you, right? And a lot of times, we only have certain people in our life for a reason because they're people that support us and cheer us. And that's great. You want to have your people that support you. But the end of the day, sometimes those people aren't giving you the words that are true, right? They're,
Hmm.
saying certain things because, they don't want to offend you, or they don't want to, rock the boat, ruffle your feathers. So I think it's
Hmm.
important that you surround yourself with people that, are going to tell you when you mess up. They're going to tell you when you're falling short, right? So I really think it'd be a matter of the people in my life that I've been able to interact with, right? It's the kids I coach on my volleyball team, my 13-year-old girls. It's the people that I run into, at the grocery store. It's my employees. It's just my cousin. It's one of my friends in a mastermind. It's
Hmm.
an acquaintance in a mastermind, right? It's just like, okay, if I were to die, like what would those people say about me? Like how would they describe me? Right. And since I'm dead, right, like they don't have to worry about offending me. Right. So, like, what
Right.
would that person say? Right. And I think if you start kind of like thinking about those things, it kind of just hits you in the feels, right? Because once you're gone, right, the only thing that's left is memories, right?
Hmm.
I want my daughter to be able to say certain things about me to her kids, and those kids say certain things, to their kids and whatnot. So I really think it's just a matter of how you are making people feel with every single interaction, and I think we underestimate the times that we can interact with someone. And
Hmm.
man, like think about this: how many times have you interacted with somebody and it was just only 30 seconds, and you're just like, dude, like that person made me feel really special, that person
Yeah.
made me feel really good. They looked at me in the eye, they asked some questions, like they actually cared. On the other
Hmm.
hand, how many times we ran into someone and it's been like a minute or 5 minutes and you're like, man, that person was just like a jerk, right? And
Yeah.
maybe they were just a jerk because, they just got in a fight with their wife, or they just had a
Hmm.
bad day. But like again, that lasting impression can really mean a ton to somebody. So I think it's just being aware of your interactions that you have with people, and just doing the best that you can to be you, and leaving that impression on somebody is going to go a long way.
I couldn't agree more, brother. Like the way I like to describe it sometimes is a ripple, and that ripple continues forever and ever. I mean, and this is getting like scientific here, but I don't think anything ever really ends. I mean, think about it. Like a sound just gets smaller and smaller to the point we can't hear it. That doesn't mean it's not still happening somewhere in the universe, somewhere. You just we don't have any of the facilities or the tools to hear that sound anymore, but it continues on and on. Right. And I think the same thing happens with our legacies, is sometimes you create a ripple you don't even realize. Right. And so, like, for instance, right. And I don't want to get too morbid on you, but if you died tomorrow and I was at your funeral, somebody asked me, how did I know Daniel? Obviously I'd give them the boilerplate stuff, but more than anything, if I can give you a small piece of that legacy, right. It's when I was running my marathon and I was thinking about quitting. I was thinking like, well, Daniel and Trevor, obviously Trevor was already a running machine before that, but Daniel did this in 6 weeks. And did he quit at 18 miles, at 22 miles, heck, at 26, at 28? And I just kept going up in my head. I'm like, surely I can run 26. You know what I'm saying? And so just wanted to impart that on you a little bit and let you know that, hey, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing to leave that legacy that you want to leave, brother.
I appreciate that, man. It's easy to forget. People are watching, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like sometimes
We're watching.
You don't even expect, right? Like they're watching. So you definitely have, it's your duty to show up.
Hell yeah, brother. I appreciate you so much for coming on the show. And what I love about having you on the show is the listeners get to take home a little piece of you in the form of a book. And so if you guys check out danielblue.me/book, it'll be in the show notes as well. It'll be linked there for you guys. And then we'll link it in the content that we share. And you can check out Daniel's book as well as his online courses there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all the great things that you've said. Dude, when I was telling, my guys about having you on the podcast, like one thing that I really look up to you about is, I did the story you tell about your wife. Like, man, that's the guest that needs to be on the show, right? Is your wife. Have you interviewed her yet?
Yeah, I've interviewed her, but it was specific to her business.
Oh,
so
fuck that.
I love that you're I love that you're saying this, because we've been talking about it for a while. And I was telling Ryan, my producer, and he's the one doing all the fancy stuff, right? I was telling Ryan, my producer, that, hey, we're going to do this like in the next couple of weeks. We're going to start a mini series about the restoration of our marriage.
Dude, you guys should. You guys you're the only couple I know that has been that transparent about that happening. To think about how much it's happening without us knowing, and how many other couples could be like, dude, like, we're not alone. Like, you guys could really, really, really help a lot of people. Right? Like a ton. I mean, who the hell am I going to help? I've been married for almost 10 years and we met in first grade and have had a crush on each other since first grade. Who the fuck can relate to that? Right. But you guys, man, because every relationship goes through ups and downs. Right. So you guys have a great story and the ability to help a lot of people, and definitely look up to you guys, because it's remarkable.
There you go again. I had forgotten about it. I told Ryan this last week and didn't do anything about it. So now when we get off here, we're going to schedule our first episode. Okay, Ryan? Hold me to it.
I love it.
Appreciate you, brother.
Hey, likewise, Doug.
All right, let's get building.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We sure do appreciate it. As always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you consume podcasts. Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Building Great Sales Teams, so you can get daily tips on how to get your sales team built, brick by brick. We'll see you there.